said, okay, so how much time do we spend going to networking events, writing proposals, chasing up? I said, how long did we just spend? 12 minutes. Who thinks they're now going to double their sales? Like everybody put their hands up. Their closure rates are going to go up. Their number of appointments are going to go up. The sales cycles are going to shrink. 12 minutes.
Everything leads to growth with the National Association of Sales Professionals. The Leads to Growth podcast with the National Association of Sales Professionals provides in-depth discussions sharing the best sales, prospecting, influence, and communication skills, as well as sales training techniques to take your professional sales career to the next level.
All right. Great day. Welcome, my friend. Thanks for being here.
Very happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So we are here with our first live Leads to Growth podcast for NASP. So welcome, everyone. Thanks for being here, joining us. Really excited about our guest today. It's often I get a bio that comes to me and I'm like, all right, how can I chop this up just to give the audience what they really want to hear? And with this one, I was like, I got to read it all. So this is so much good stuff. I need you to know who you're talking with and who we have here, because as a very humble and accomplished gentleman here. So Matthew is an internationally recognized consultant, speaker, blogger, author, mentor, coach, serial entrepreneur, husband, I heard as well, with 5 multi-million-dollar business success stories under his belt. Stories is a key word that you're going to hear throughout this conversation. All before the age of 30. He's the founder and CEO of Rapid Growth LLC, dedicated to achieving maximum ROI for businesses of all sizes. Through his those clients include multiple Fortune 500 companies. His real passion is for helping the small business, which is a beautiful thing. There's so many of them in such a growing market right now. Really helping them end the overwhelmness, right? Being overwhelmed, eliminate the stress and the guesswork to get a clear path for rapid growth. I love that term, rapid growth. I'm going to ask you about that here as well. He's called The Real Deal by Forbes. His methods have transformed over 3,500 businesses to date. Matthew's methods come from hands-on real-world experience. He's contributor to CEO Entrepreneur, Top Sales World Magazine. He's also a recurring guest on Fox and NBC. Hopefully Leads to Growth podcast. The Introvert's Edge is his podcast and his amazing book. Boom, boom, boom. Looking forward to having this autograph very shortly. And just genuinely a great guy. So thank you very much for being here, man. I really appreciate it.
Honored, and to be the first live podcast as well. So that's fun.
Absolutely. On your recommendation, I always appreciate a good challenge. So thanks for being here. So this is we're here in Austin, and this is your one of your past hometowns, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I love Austin, great town, and I spent 4 years here, and it was where I birthed my American life. So I've got a lot of time for people in Austin, especially people that are doing amazing work in Austin, which your group definitely is. So I'm excited to be here.
Awesome, fantastic. So you mentioned your American brand. Tell us a little bit about your story first, before you get into the brand, because the brand often tells a little bit about your story, which I really love about you. Yeah. But if you could tell us about your story, your books, The Introvert's Edge, or the podcast, The Introvert's Edge. Something tells me that you might have started as an introvert at some point in your life here.
It's funny. Most people look at, I just spoke in San Antonio. That's why I'm here local at the moment. And people see me up on stage and they're like, well, it's easy for him. He's that extroverted person. He's just got that natural charisma. He can just do it. And it's important that people understand how I was, not how I am today. And I think that a lot of times introverts, especially, they'll project on somebody else their ability to do something that they can't. And I mean, for me, I had a reading speed of a 6th grader in late high school. I had horrible acne. And, thanks to, my reading speed issues, I got diagnosed with this thing called Irwin syndrome, which basically meant I could put on this pair of gray-blue glasses and all of a sudden I could see and read properly.
Crazy.
But I had to learn to read from scratch at that point.
Sure.
So I was starting again. So, I put a lot of energy into the last 2 years of high school, and I got into the top 20% of my state, but my family could see I was exhausted. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. And because, you put blue-gray glasses on and have horrible acne and see what that does for your confidence, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't like to talk to my own friends, let alone other people. And so I convinced my family I'm just going to take a year off. I need to find myself for a year. A lot of kids do that, right? Find themselves for a year. But I grew up I grew up in a poor family. So for me, it was, okay, we'll do that, but you have to get a job. You have to support yourself. And, my dad broke his back 80 hours a week. I was not about to say, no, I'm just going to sit on the couch.
Sure.
So I took a job at a real estate agency, and most people go, well, there you go, salesperson, right? Out of real estate. I was the guy in the back office doing data entry, right? And having that look on my face. Don't talk to me, I'm here to find myself, right? So, and that would have been a great career. And this is one of the important things that I try and make people understand is I would have been very happy doing that for the rest of my life. But gosh, I wouldn't have traded this life I have now in for that. And, one of the things that I commonly share is, the adversities we have in our life tend to seed the success of our future.
Absolutely.
And, what happened next was a real moment like that. So my boss came in, I worked there for 6 weeks. And he said, mate, we've just had a corporate decision. They've decided to close down this office. I'm sorry, you're out of a job. This was I'd been there 6 weeks.
Wow.
This was just before Christmas. And while here, Christmas is we just had Thanksgiving. We're going to fly in for Christmas. We're going to get straight back to work. That's not Australia. I mean, we're having our summer break and our Christmas break at the same time. We're off on the 20th of December, and we don't come back till the 15th and 20th of January.
You needed to start endorsing that here.
Well, yes and no. For me, I would have swapped for the American system.
Yes, okay, at that point, I imagine.
So for me, it was, okay, well, I mean, you work in business. I mean, how many
Sure.
people are you hiring before going on a month-long holiday? None.
Yeah.
So for me, I was like, well, where am I going to get a job? Turns out there's the only jobs you could get were these things called commission-only sales jobs. So I went for a few interviews, and surprise, surprise, I got every job because they just hire everyone, right? Now, I was lucky enough. I showed up in a suit. I was the only one that did. So they put me in the business team because I had potential. So I joined the business team, and after 5 days of product training and not a single second of sales training, I got thrown on this road called Sydney Road. Now, not only was it terrifying enough to be thrown on that road and told that I had to go and sell, I took a deep breath and I was like, I can do this. And then I went to walk in. I had this realization, no one told me what to say. What am I going to do when I get in there?
Right.
So, I took another deep breath and I went in and, I got told to leave. And then shortly after that, I got told to leave again. Then I got sworn at. And then my personal favorite, go get a real job. All right. I mean, people can be lovely.
That helps the psyche a lot.
Yeah,
right? Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, it was great. I loved every minute of it. So, for me, it was tough, but I spent a long time getting comfortable with the fact that I'm going to get told no, right? And that's got to be okay. But door after door, I was rejected. I was told to get a real job until the 93rd door where I made my first sale. And, it was getting close to the end of the day, but I remember I walked out, I was ecstatic. And, I'd made about $70. And then I had my second profound realization today. I'm going to do this again tomorrow. So I'm like, okay, I've got to do this again tomorrow. I'm doing it this way is not okay, right? There's got to be a smarter way. And I think that's one of the things that a salesperson, we've all heard that, it's a numbers game, right? And my manager, they had this saying, we just throw mud up against the wall and see what sticks. It's fine until you realize you're the mud, right? And I'm like, this is not okay.
They throw something different here. I'm glad they're throwing mud away in Australia.
Yeah. Mud's a better way of saying it, right?
Yeah, I appreciate that, yeah.
I share this story on stage. The other word is not acceptable.
Yeah, we're right. They're throwing the same thing both places. I'm just making sure.
Exactly, yeah. So for me, though, I was like, all right, I've got to find another way. And I think this is important for salespeople, right? It's not about just working harder. It's about finding a solution to the problem. And for me, my whole mindset always, how I learned to read was systematic, how I learned to sell. Everything I learned about business, systems, right? So I see entrepreneurs all the time. I mean, and I see salespeople that try so hard doing the same thing every day. And I mean, that's the definition of insanity, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the Albert Einstein quote. So
right.
the thing for me is I went, all right, I need to find a way around this, but what is that? What is it that I'm going to be able to do to turn that? I mean, I couldn't exactly pick up a Brian Tracy or a Zig Ziglar book. I mean, it would have taken me a year to learn that.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, it would have taken me a year to read it and then never apply it, right? So I started looking and I discovered YouTube. And, a lot of people think that there's just cat videos on YouTube, but
That's all I've seen in a while, yeah.
Well, there's a lot more to it than that, right? Yeah. So I learned the system of the sale, the process of the sale, and, every day I'd spend 8 hours in the field selling and then 8 hours back home practicing.
That's right.
And every day, the number of doors was less. It was, soon it was 62 and then 48 and then 26 and then, 20 and then 12 and then 3. And about 6 weeks in, and it wasn't a fun 6 weeks, right? And I mean, and this is the thing, the pain's got to be worth the gain. And for me, the pain of telling my father that day one was too hard was worth pushing through. For other people, they've got kids at home, right? They've got to learn this stuff.
And you didn't stop after you hit 48 or 64 or
No.
28. You just kept going. You had that mindset of growth, and there is no there of constantly moving forward.
Absolutely. And, I see people that are like, well, it was 93 doors this time, it'll be 93 doors next time, 93 doors. Oh, it's 45, lucky day. Next day it's 93 again.
It's the belief, right? Whether you believe something else is possible or you believe that today was just a lucky day, how you define that.
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
And for me, I tend to find that I create my own luck because, and I see people say, well, I was lucky today because they had a couple of good customers or they accidentally said the right thing, right? For me, I create my own luck because I'm like, well, I can systemize this luck thing.
Absolutely.
Right? So for me, it was 3 doors. Not everyone's going to say yes. Sometimes the decision makers aren't there. But over 6 weeks, and it wasn't a fun 6 weeks, and most people wouldn't have done it.
Right.
Right. But, 6 weeks in, my boss calls me into the office. I thought I was in a lot of trouble. And he's like, man, we're kind of blown away by this, but we just got our national sales report and you're the number one performer in the company, which happened to be the largest sales and marketing company in the Southern Hemisphere.
Very nice.
So for me, one of the biggest things that is important for people to understand is, I went from scared to sell, like terrified to sell, to teaching, well, now through the book, The Introvert's Edge, right? I get the chance to teach tens of thousands. And I think the most important thing that the message that I share to people is, that it's possible to sell as an introvert. As a matter of fact, the whole thesis of my book is that introverts can beat extroverts hands down, not because they make better salespeople, but they have some natural advantages. I know introvert natural advantages. It's hard to believe,
right?
But we do this thing called listening. And it's actually empathy and active listening skills. Introverts have in spades. These are things that extroverts can learn too, but they need to be coached on that. The thing that introverts have as a disadvantage is we believe there's this gift of gab wall that we can't get past. And what I help people realize is that if they can just get past that and realize it's a systematic process, just like anything else, then not only can they it's not that they can break through the wall, but they'll realize the wall didn't exist. And then they have these advantages that allow them to succeed. Isn't
it amazing that our perception is just so powerful that we believe the person who doesn't listen and talks all the time is the person who has the advantage and influencing somebody else, when in actuality, the person who listens and responds with less is the person who has the opportunity to really have the most powerful influence.
Absolutely. I've seen extroverts sell to doctors that have a 20-minute meeting and they get 15 minutes in, they haven't spoken about the product yet because they're just excited about talking.
Sure.
Now, an introvert goes in with a systematic process. Now, of course, an extrovert's always going to beat an introvert hands down without a process. But with a process, an introvert can be more authentic, be more present in the room because they're not trying to work out what to say. Now, I know for some people, they're like, I don't want to sound scripted. Well, Leonardo DiCaprio was scripted in the movies. He wins Oscars for his dynamic portrayal of parts, but he spends more time than the hello, so great to meet you that we hear on telemarketing.
Absolutely.
Right? He spends time learning, embracing it, and taking it on.
He owns it. He lives it. It becomes the script. Yeah.
Exactly. And then especially for a lot of people, it's there a lot of times, and I talk about story being the central part of this, and they're like, well, I'm not sure what story is applicable. And I'm like, well, firstly, anyone in business needs to understand sales is step 3. Right? If you don't have a strong message that excites and inspires people to want to know more about you, if you don't decide what niche, even if you work for a big company, right, focus on a specific niche so that all of the stories that you have focus on that dynamic. So anytime you speak to someone, my last business, we ended up with 3,500 business owners as students, but we started by focusing on the trade demographic. And I'd go and see a plumber and I'd be like, what problems do you have in your business? We don't have any problems. Who's this guy in a suit thinking I've got problems? And I'd be like, really? Because the last 60 plumbers I sat down with in the last 6 months have said they've got this problem, this problem, this problem. Are you sure you don't have any of those? And I'm like, well, actually, I've got all of those problems. Plus, I've got this problem and this, because they know I knew them.
Right.
And then I'd share a story about a plumber that I'd worked with in the past and how we got this outcome. We did this in tech sales recently, and people are like, well, let me explain. And they go into all this technology jargon. And the customer's like, hey, can you just send me a proposal?
Right.
They're not going to read the proposal.
Sweeping you right off the table.
You're going to spend the next 12 hours writing this in-depth proposal. They're not going to read. They're going to flip to the back price and go, you know what, we'll just do it another time.
Yeah.
Right? It's just people these days don't understand that if they don't have a script, they're forced to just say whatever comes out of their mouth. And I'd love to take credit for this. But, the truth is, Brian Tracy's been talking about this for gosh knows how long. Now, of course, he's definitely an extrovert. But he was smart enough to be able to realize that the top 20% of all sales performers have a planned presentation. The bottom 80%, introverted or extroverted, they just say whatever comes out of their mouth.
Top 20%.
It's a big number, right?
It's a very big number. And the important part too is that they have a script in place. Does that mean that they have to stick to that thing 100%? No, we have to be flexible. We have to know when time to move and when time to stay, right? But to have it in place and to have that outcome in mind and to have a plan that you can operate within is a beautiful freedom to give yourself.
Absolutely. And I mean, if you have a structured process, and here's why I say introverts have the edge. See, an extrovert wants to ad-lib. So while both of them get an advantage, and when I teach like the storytelling process, I actually taught a team at Colliers International here in Oslo.
Oh, okay.
And when I first worked with them, they had 3 principals of the company that were successful, but they hired a group of people and they wanted to train them their way. And because of that, they spent 6 months training. They said, we've got 2 groups of people, and neither of them are good. I mean, the first group are these introverted people, and best characterized by this guy, Thomas. And Thomas was super introverted. I mean, in his own words, he made 1 appointment in the last 6 months that was borderline useless. And he's like, and they're the best telemarketers that we've got. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, the extroverts, best characterized by this guy, Alex, who was best known as he called himself the bulldog. I mean, I'm talking this guy hyped up on coffee, fists on the table, yelling at the phone. Like every conversation, battle to be won, foe to be vanquished. He said the problem is he beats them into submission, but the C-level execs are just hanging out. He said the middle managers are the ones that are agreeing to appointments, and they've only done it because they were pushed into it. They don't have the ability to make a decision, and they also don't want us there, but they couldn't get them off the phone, so they agreed. So we're wasting our time. It's bad for our brand. So we taught this process of having a scripted process to get the appointment, and then, to get the conversation going, and then understanding there's likely going to be either they're going to agree to an appointment or more likely an objection. Mm-hmm. And then when they get this objection, they should say, and this is an important line for anyone that's listening, write this down, and the word choice is important. I perfectly understand. The last thing I want to do is waste any of your time. However, I validate what you've said. Mm-hmm. I know you're busy. However, now the word however is important because salespeople love this word but. Now, if you don't believe me, by the way, go home and say, for the married men out there, go home and say, dear, you look beautiful in that dress, but, and see what happens. The word but is a subtraction term. So
I've been told to never believe anything that comes before the word but.
Well, it's not that you shouldn't. Most people in their mind, it's disregarded.
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah.
So it's everything I said before this was just pretense to tell you what I really think.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a lot of people use the word and. I find the word however works best because it says, I validate everything that you've said. I understand that you're busy. However, there's one thing you may not have considered. Mm-hmm. And then to tell a story. Now, what we did with these guys was we started to tell them, we talked to them about the process of telling stories. I mean, there's a lot of natural advantages. I mean, especially for those introverts out there, a story creates natural rapport. Studies out of Princeton talk about this process of our brains synchronizing.
Absolutely.
And, all of a sudden, especially like when I get up on stage, the first thing I do is lead with the story because it makes me comfortable.
Absolutely.
The second thing is people remember 22 times more information when embedded into a story, which means I know if you've spoken to 10 other sales guys before me, if I tell a story, you're going to remember more of what I say than all of them put together.
So true.
But the most important is it short-circuits your logical mind, which means that, the part of the brain that goes, I don't have time for this, that won't work for me, let's just hang up on the bloke, right? That part's diffused. And your emotional brain goes, oh, story time. And it doesn't know how to interpret all the facts and details. It has to take that as fact, and then it interprets the moral.
Absolutely. So
I told them to tell this story. And people do tell wonderful stories in their personal life, like the story about how people meet their husband or wife. It's like these stories are theatrical masterpieces. Like I say this, you say this, we hold hands, we look at each other lovingly.
The smell, the touch, the feel, the air, the birds, they know it all.
Exactly. Yeah. But when it comes to business, like customer wanted this, so I gave it to them. And maybe if we're lucky, here was the outcome, right? I get people to tell these stories from this customer was stressed out. Their job was riding on this decision that was going, and they didn't realize that it was going, this could have cost their family a lot of money. And maybe, now they're putting that money towards college tuition for their kids. These emotionally deep stories. Most people don't have depth. Well, long story short, the extroverts actually got a better result up front. So within the space of 2 months, I mean, this was a $2 million company. They put the number of appointments quadrupled. They put $1 million extra on the bottom line. This was a $2 million company, 2 months, $1 million. Within 12 months, they were a $10 million company. Now, the extroverts succeeded more upfront. But then what did they do? They started to grab, but I'd really like to introduce a little bit of my personality.
Fell away.
The introverts, this was the thing they could hold on to.
They got more comfortable within this.
They zoned in, they got better. Like when you said, why did you keep pushing? Well, because I became addicted to it. It's like, wow, if I can just learn that little extra, I can bring it down and down and down. Exactly. Yeah. And introverts love that. Well, Thomas actually became, he won this award, the Top Dog Award for their company. Only a few months later, he was the #1 salesperson. He was the first junior partner to beat all of the principals in sales for a whole month.
I love it.
That's why I say introverts have the edge. Not because extroverts can't do this, but because too often they choose not to.
What happened to our boy, the Bulldog?
The Bulldog actually, his wonderful thing now, he's not off the coffee, but he's no longer treating it like, gas fuel.
Beautiful.
Right? So, but he says, his statement is now, he loves it because he's like, it doesn't matter what they say, I just tell a story they agree with.
Do you notice the names that he mentions, the details, the Bulldog pounding his fist, these little details? How many times has he told that story? I would dare say 100 probably to himself and then 100 to other people.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry. I just want y'all to hear, like, we often tell a story and think that maybe it's the extrovert, we need to come up with a different story, or the story's not as much our own, but it's not important. The story is important for the other person. It's not about you, it's about them. Getting them involved, getting them engaged, and allowing them to let go of the facts and allowing their brain to go to story time, right?
Well,
and the psychology that happens from that.
And I think the important thing is learning that they have to be emotional, right? Emotionally driven stories, right? I mean, you think about Thomas, one appointment borderline useless in 6 months. How does that make you feel? How do you think Thomas felt?
Yeah.
Right? When I tell the story in more detail, I talk about, how emotional that made him, because he felt like he was embarrassed to go to work every day. And Alex thought he was doing everything right, the Bulldog, yet he was feeling miserable. I mean, that's a terrible way to live your life, hyped up on coffee every day. I mean, I wouldn't wish it on anybody. But what was interesting is, I just spoke at an event in San Antonio, and we do this exercise, and I'm like, everybody think about a story, tell each other for 3 minutes. And so they tell, and I say, who here wants to volunteer to tell a story? Well, of course, an extrovert hops up, always. So this extrovert hops up and he tells this story, and it's, 3D printing. Now, you can tell I have no practice telling the story, right? So this guy's talking about 3D printing, and he's like, well, so the customer came to me and he said, well, we want to do this 3D printing thing, and we want to get, a prototype together. And we want to focus on getting this out to the marketplace. He said, oh, have you considered these 3 things? And anyway, the customer went and shopped around, found out that A, he felt more comfortable because he did everything, but B, the fact that he could do it for cheaper. And I said, well, that's great. Logical story, right? So he was then, I did a good story, everyone's impressed. I said, let me ask you a question. This person, was it their first business? Yes. Okay. What were they doing currently? Were they earning like 6-figure incomes? No, they had jobs they were struggling to get by. Okay. You said that they had $20,000 and they didn't want to borrow money, so that was money they saved. How long did it take them to save it? Do you think they were stressed about making the wrong decision? Was this an important thing? Do you think there was stress around, if I spend that $20,000 on this and it doesn't go well? Did they have kids? What about, wouldn't it have been better spent on college tuition? Do you think if it went bad, they'd feel guilty every day that they blew the money on this idea instead of paying for their kids' college?
All the feelings, all the emotions.
All of a sudden, I get tingles just talking about it now, right? All of a sudden, this has shifted. Now he's worked with this client. Yes, he was cheap. I mean, that's a nice thing, but I always say, like, why would you want to be the cheapest if you're the best, right? So the next thing is, well, talk to me about the after story, right? Now we've got the prototype. It's worked. And they're now making money out of it. Are they now better off? Are they now considering leaving their jobs? Do they have a better future for their family? How does he feel about that?
Beautiful.
And then I said, okay, so now let's do this exercise again. And I gave them this matrix, which is straight out of chapter 5, The Introvert's Edge. But we created this template for Oracle when I was working with them, this little 4-step process. And I gave them this template and I said, now spend 6 minutes telling this story. The 4 of them is telling the story. The other 2 minutes is just giving critique about these 4 ideas to make sure that there's enough emphasis on each one of the points. So how long are we talking? We're talking a 6-minute exercise. Each person gets to go 12 minutes total.
Sure.
But I only get 6 minutes. You only get 6 minutes.
Okay.
I said, and then we went around the room. How much better is the story? Amazing differences, transformational differences. I said, okay, so how much time do we spend going to networking events, writing proposals, chasing up? I said, how long did we just spend? 12 minutes. Who thinks they're now going to double their sales? Like, everybody put their hands up. Their closure rates are going to go up. Their number of appointments are going to go up. The sales cycles are going to shrink. 12 minutes. Most people, Albert Einstein has, not Albert Einstein, Abe Lincoln has this amazing quote that if he was given 6 hours to chop down a tree, he'll spend the first 4 sharpening his axe. Yep. Most businesses, most salespeople, what they do is just keeping on chopping.
Absolutely.
You've got to sharpen the axe, and then you get to carry around that sharpened axe for the rest of your life. I just don't understand why people spend all their time throwing that up against the wall.
Mm-hmm. Man, absolutely beautiful, and I love your passion behind it too. It gets me all going too. Your name, the Rapid Growth Guy. Where did this come from, and how and why? Why the Rapid Growth Guy, and how did you come to this?
So one of the things that I focus on is helping people understand that if they're a commodity, they only have price to compete on. Right now, especially the new businesses, like if you're a first-time business owner, like if you're a brand like Oracle or Microsoft, people will buy you because you're the best-known commodity, right? But if you're a new business, right, you've got less economies of scale, less testimonials on your website, and you're less experienced.
Absolutely.
Right? Why would you want to just compete on price? The only way you win is by being the cheapest.
Right.
Right? So I don't want people to compete on that. And even for big corporations like, Electrolux, I spoke at their conference, and they're like, we've got more products and more experience than anyone else. By the way, we're losing market share. Why? The reason is you commoditize yourself. The thing that I try to get people out of is defining themselves by the commodity that they are, right? So I'll give you an example. You go to a networking event. What is it you do? I'm a sales trainer. Oh, that's nice. Awkward pause. Right. Or I say something like, I tried sales training before. It didn't really work for me. Now you've got to defend it. Now you're pushing me something that I didn't ask for. It feels awkward, right?
Absolutely.
Now I'll say I'm a business coach, and you're like, well, I tried business coaching. It didn't work. And now we both look for an excuse to go to the bathroom to get away from each other, right? What I look at is, what can I say? So if I say, for instance, I'm the Rapid Growth Guy, all of a sudden, like, well, that's interesting. I've never heard that before. What exactly is that? So I'll give you an example. I worked with this client. Careful here, guys. I'm about to tell a story, right? Because stories are the best way to illustrate a point.
Absolutely.
They're the best way to educate and inspire, but also help people see the value of what you provide, right? Now, I'm going to give you an example of one of the things that I always suggest is everybody should only have 3 stories, right? Now, when you first start, 3. Right? Notice that you can't have 3 stories if you have hundreds of customers from lots of different niches. Mm-hmm. So if you know your ideal client base, then 1 story is going to be your more central one, and then you'll have 2 satellite stories. But that's what you need, 3
stories.
But if I'm working with plumbers and attorneys, I'm going to need more stories, right?
Yeah, a little bit more variety.
Now, as you start, you want to focus on one niche. Now, as you start to grow, you can have this salesperson focuses on this group, this salesperson focuses on this group. But at the start, you want to have 3 stories and focus on one demographic. Now, the story that I use all the time is this person called Wendy. She's a language coach out of California. Okay. And she taught kids and adults Mandarin in California. And she, for almost a decade, she'd be teaching people for $50 to $80 an hour and doing it successfully. Problem was, all these people were moving into California, and they were charging $30 to $40 an hour to get their first clients. And we've all done it, right? I mean, you charge a little bit less, So she was losing current clients. She was struggling to get new clients. By the way, did you know we live in this thing called this global economy?
Well, I heard about it.
Yeah. So apparently now people can advertise on Craigslist from China to teach Mandarin, $12 an hour.
And there's like 12 or 13 or 100 other companies online that are offering free language training and apps and everything else.
You got to thank our friends in Silicon Valley.
Exactly,
right?
Absolutely.
Right, they've created all these great. I'll teach you Mandarin, you teach me English. Right.
Yeah.
So the problem is that she came to me and she's like, "Can you teach me how to sell more effectively? Can you teach me some sales tactics?" And I'm like, "If I teach you sales tactics, you kind of already lost." Instead, what I want to do is figure out how we can avoid the battle altogether.
Isn't that funny though, how most people always come to us, I need to figure out better marketing or better sales, right? It's always about the top end of the funnels, never anything up below that.
Well, that's the thing, because what it is, and we live in this instant gratification society. So it's, what can I do now that will help tomorrow?
Yeah.
And the problem is, by the way, you can actually apply this and have it by tomorrow. but it feels like you're standing still, right? So the natural answer is call more people. Learn this one tactic so you can call more people.
Absolutely.
So with Wendy, I'm like, what we need to do is avoid the battle. So I looked at all the customers that she worked with, and she worked with hundreds. But there were 2 people specifically, and it was only 2, and those were executives being relocated across to China. Okay. And she helped them understand. She helped them understand these really cool things. Like, so the first thing was this concept called Galaxy, which I know sounds like outer space.
I've heard you mention this. I love it. I was even going to ask you about this.
Yeah. So I mean, for us, I mean, if I was trying to sell you something in the Western world, like, what are we like 45 minutes? And if I'm a really bad salesperson, I'm going to say, so you want to move forward? And you're going to go, yes, no, or everyone's favorite. What do you think about it?
Yeah.
If I call you next week though, and you still tell me you want to think about it, my chances of getting that sale are slim. Right? In China, they're going to want to see you maybe 5 or 6 times before they speak about business. They're probably going to want to see you drunk over karaoke once.
This is true.
It's just who they are.
Absolutely.
Right? So the thing that's important is she helped them understand that just their buying behavior is different. And so don't get frustrated with that. But understand that you're not talking transactional 12 or 24 months.
That would be an incredibly expensive lesson to learn on your own, by the way.
Technology sales. There was I can't try to remember that. Actually, I won't mention the name for a reason, but there was a corporation that went and tried to sell technology to China. They were trying to sell it to computers, and they got to China and they were selling to the Chinese government. And on the 3rd meeting, they got frustrated and said, "Can we just talk about the product? Like, you guys seem to be talking about your kids. I appreciate you've got kids. I don't care. Let's just get into it." They listened to him, heard him out. Never welcome back. Yeah. That was it, right? So you've got to learn. It can be really expensive, but they're talking 50 to 100-year deals. So it's worth the work.
50 to 100-year relationships.
It's longer than most people's careers, right?
Exactly.
So she helped them understand that the difference between e-commerce in China and the Western world, the importance of respect, like learning the language isn't enough. You've got to reduce your accent. Yeah. And when I was in Thailand, all these people I spoke at Electrolux Asia Pacific, people would hand you their business card. If you just throw it in your pocket like you do here, you're done. You got to hold it, look at all the detail. 2
hands, receive it.
Right?
Yeah. Took me a while to figure that one out.
So Wendy helped them understand all this. I said, Wendy, you're doing so much more than just language tuition for these people.
Sure, culture integration, right?
Yeah, and she was like, well, yeah, I know. And I'm like, what do you think? So what are you doing for these people? She's like, I'm just trying to help. And I'm like, you're stuck in your functional skill. Is it fair to assume as a result of the assistance you're giving these people, they're going to be more successful in China? And she's like, well, yeah, obviously, that's the point, right? So why wouldn't we just call you the China Success Coach then? Forget about this thing that people can do for free. Let's focus on these things you're already doing. You already know. You don't have to go back to school, right? Let's focus on this. And we created the China Success Intensive. She loved this idea. She's like, well, who do we sell it to? Right. So we crafted this 5-week program. And I'm like, well, who do you think your ideal client is? Here's what people get wrong. They think, well, the natural client is the person I'm working with. And I said, well, no, it's not. She thought the executive. And I'm like, well, no, it's not. I was terrified moving from Australia to the US. People here speak the same language.
Right.
But still not the ideal client.
Sure.
So she's like, well, obviously the corporation will pay. That seems logical, right? The corporation will pay.
Go to the money.
The problem was that, these people would have hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars riding on this executive being successful. But how do you, that sounds like a hard sales pitch, right? So I said, your ideal client is the immigration attorney. She looked at me, she's like, what? And I'm like, well, you think about it. These people, interesting business model. They make maybe $5,000 to $7,000 to do the visa, do all the bureaucracy around that, paperwork, and they've got to pay to get the customer, right? So they'd be lucky to make like $3,000. So just offer them $3,000 for a successful introduction. She started approaching them like $3,000 for double my profit for an introduction. What would I have to say? Right. Simple. Congratulations, you've now got your visa. Now I just want to double check you're as ready as possible to get relocated across to China. And they'd be like, well, yeah, I think so. We've got our house sorted now. We're learning the language. Kids are getting pretty good at it too. We've got our visa. Thank you. I think we're set. And they just respond with, it's actually a lot more to it than that. I think you need to speak to the China Success Coach. Now, Wendy would then get on the phone with the easiest seller in the world. Terrified to go, motivated to pay company, recommended by the immigration attorney. She charged $30,000 for this 5-week program. After she paid the immigration attorney, she made $27,000 for the easiest sale in the world, instead of charging $50 to $80 an hour for private consultation. That's rapid growth, but that's not sales. That's creating a unified message. I'm the China Success Coach, understanding the niche, executives being relocated to China, and then the sales system works.
I love it.
So for the people at home, what they really need to be focused on, or people listening in their office, I should say, is they need to understand what are the skills that they give outside the scope of their outside the scope of their functional skill. Like for me, when I worked for a telecommunications company, I didn't have a lot of control over the messaging, so I came up with this concept that I would do bill analysis for people and help them see the real amount in the bill. In the bill. I mean, people do that, commonplace these days, but back then they weren't. Right. You've got to come up with something outside the scope of your functional skill, and then say, what's the high level benefit of that? For Wendy, it was, e-commerce, Galaxy and Respect. High level benefit was China success. For me, I mean, I'm a branding expert. I'm a social media strategist. I'm a sales trainer. I'm a master in neuro-linguistic program. I mean, I'm so many things. Nobody cares. They don't care how hard it was for me to learn, how long I spent learning it. But when I say I'm the rapid growth guy, I help organizations large and small obtain rapid growth. The simplicity of that message, that's what gets me heard in the crowded marketplace. And when I go to a networking event, people are like, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more. And instead of saying, well, here's the specifics of what I do, I say, well, basically what I do is I help people understand. Actually, you know what? Let me give you an example. Let me tell you about Wendy.
Let me tell you a story.
And then all of a sudden, people go, oh, story time. And they listen. And you know what people say? I want what Wendy has.
Stories sell.
Exactly right.
Stories sell. Our minds can't tell the difference between something vividly imagined and something that actually happens in real life. So you take all these facts, they don't mean anything to us. They're not real to us. But you tell them in the concept of a story. You tell how the benefits of the things that you're going to offer, how they've helped other people in those same situations that you're in, and now you've relayed that they can feel the value of what you offer. Another thing that he said that I want you to listen to is the Chinese success coach, rapid growth. They're not saying, hey, we're pretty good at these things. There's some bold claims in here, right? So it's a lot of seeing and appreciating your own value, right? Really understanding the differentiators that you bring and being bold about putting them out there.
Well, it's about not being functional, right? It's about displaying the unified benefit of what you provide, right? So that's what China success. I want to go to China. I want to be successful. I want to be in business and I want to obtain rapid growth, right? That's the concept. It's the unified benefit.
Absolutely.
I mean, this doesn't actually take very long. I mean, I actually did a conference here in Austin, the National Freelance Conference. Mm-hmm. And, it works for corporations. It works for, industry silos. It works for the small business. And, when I did it with them, we did this 5-step template, which basically the template, the whole focus is that it helps you, create a unified message and discover your niche. And we spent 45 minutes doing it. I said, at the end of this, I said, so who here has a unified message that will excite and inspire prospects to want to know more about you and a niche of clients they know that are finally going to pay them what they're worth? And like 97% of the room put their hands up. But here's the sad part. I said, keep your hands up if this is more time than you spent on marketing since you started your business. 85% of the room kept their hands up. So the important thing, I mean, what do we talk about stories? 12 minutes? Transformational difference?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So the thing for me is that people spend the time doing it. And you don't have to work with me to do that. I mean, if people just go to matthewpollard.com/growth, you can download that template and put that to work. But don't do it by yourself. Please don't do it by yourself. Find a friend that is not from your industry. Because if somebody understands your jargon, they're not going to be the one that's going to help you explain.
You need the layman's police in the house.
Absolutely. So go to matthewpollard.com/growth, download this and find a buddy outside your industry and tell them you do the same. Maybe show them this video and say, here's why I want to do it with you. Do you want to do this exercise with me? So they've got a bit of context. And then what I want you to do is spend an hour each way and let you said it really well. What did you call it? The police?
The layman's police.
The layman's police. Yes. Let the layman's police call you on the stuff that they don't care about. Because I promise you, everything that you think was important, they don't care about. Mm-hmm. It's the stuff that you think is super basic, because that's the stuff that they can finally understand that is transformational for them. That's the stuff that they want to be hearing about. And that's the unified benefit. And you're going to be like, but how do I, for me, it took me like 2 months to come up with my own. It takes me 2 hours to come up with somebody else's, right? It's all it is because I'm not attached to other people's stuff. Where with me, I'm sitting there going, yeah, but this was really important in my life. And this was really, nobody cares.
Absolutely.
And that's why you've got to work with somebody else.
I love the fact that we talk about when you sell to a person, remember that there's a real person inside there, right? It's not just a position or role and a buyer, right? There's actually a real person that's concerned about his job, concerned about his family, concerned about the people that he works with and works for. Like all these variables come into play. And when it comes down to it, we make decisions, right? But then we justify with emotion.
Absolutely.
Right? Or we make emotional decisions and we justify with logic, pardon me. So everybody's going to make an emotional decision. In order for them to make an emotional decision, you've got to pull those emotions out. And the story is the most beautiful way to do that. Man, thank you so much. I really appreciate the time. And the value that you've given our audience. And I don't know if y'all noticed, I really didn't talk that much this time because I was listening like intently. And so I really had a great time. You mentioned your website again. Where else can our audience follow you and find you online?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, firstly, a lot of people, my publisher hates me when I do this. You don't have to buy my book to learn the sales process. One of the biggest things that I do is I give away chapter 1 of my book 100% for free. I mean, if you do buy the book, there's an entire video implementation training that's given away free in the back of the book. So it'll give you the full step, but you don't have to do that. One of the things that I say, I know a lot of authors put a lot of fluff in the first chapter to try and sell their book. Mine outlines the full 7-step sales process. If you do nothing more than just grab those 7 steps, put in what you're already saying to customers. By the way, some of that stuff won't fit. If it doesn't fit, stop saying it to customers. You shouldn't be doing that, right? Those things shouldn't be told to clients. And then you'll realize there's some gaps. And I almost guarantee it's going to be asking great questions and telling great stories, right? And when you fill those gaps, you'll double your sales. If you follow the process and fill those gaps, you'll double your sales in the next 60 days. So just focus on doing that. Focus on getting the 7 steps under control. Focus on the template that I said at matthewpollard.com/growth. Work with a buddy to practice to get the unified message and the niche right.
That role play.
And then that's where I would want you to start. Now, if you want to take your practice further than that, I mean, find me on social media. I mean, I've got profiles everywhere. I mean, you type my name into Google, you'll find me everywhere.
He's on everything and everywhere. I think he's still got a Google Plus account. So
and I think we've got something like 1,000 videos available on those platforms.
So much content on YouTube. I couldn't put it down.
So, I mean, I know a lot of people like, buy my stuff. Start with the free stuff. Start learning and double your business through that. The free chapter will give you the tools to do that. The template that we talked about to get your unified message right will do that. And some of the videos give you these amazing quick wins. So start with that. And, and as I said, if you've got questions, let me know. But what I find is as soon as people start to go through a systematic process, the variability disappears and so does the questions.
When you use a system, you can improve on it. Absolutely. You can measure your success. Man, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. I'm going to take a lot of this to heart and put it into play, into action. All right, that's our Leads to Growth podcast, y'all. Matthew Pollard, the man, rapid growth guy. Go get his book, The Introvert's Edge, and we'll see you again on the next one.
Cheers.